During my early childhood, which really wasn't that long ago at all, I loved playing racing games. In those days, when the PlayStation 1 and PlayStation 2 were still relevant, I could spend hour after hour, night after night, playing different racing games for my collection, perfecting my skills and strategies to master each track. And just the same, that hasn't changed much either. I still do that. Racing games offered a different challenge than all of the other games that I had accumulated. It was a direct challenge to become better. To be better than not only the guy next to you, or in front of you, but to be better than the track, even being better than the car itself. The mechanics of racing games allowed instant gratification for improved skill, and always gave you reasons to keep improving. And of all of the titles that I have played and dominated over the years, after 12 years of almost exclusively playing racing games, there is one that stands head and shoulders above all the rest. NASCAR Thunder 2004, created by EA Sports.
It's in the game.
Out of the 14 NASCAR games created for consoles by EA, I own 10 of them. Added on that I also own 3 non-EA titles, being NASCAR Heat, NASCAR Heat 2002, and NASCAR Dirt to Daytona, which you have seen on my channel. And that I have played NASCAR Thunder 2003, I just don't own it. I have burned rubber across 14 separate console NASCAR games during my 16 years here. It hasn't just been NASCAR though, as I also own games from the Burnout series, the Flatout series, the Need for Speed series, the Gran Turismo series, countless racing sims for the Nintendo Wii, and even a forgotten game by Challenger, Speed Racer on the PS1. After the math, I have played about 30 different console racing games since I first started at the age of 4, spending a considerable amount of time with nearly every single one. But of all of those games, made across all of those years, not even one of those comes close to the enjoyment I get from playing NASCAR Thunder 2004. 2004, as I'll call it to save time, has the perfect mixture of difficulty, visual appeal, realism, and straight-up fun that I have come to expect from a racing game. First, I'll start off with the actual driving portion, which is what the rest of a racing game is centered around. Starting out, you will most likely face an apparent learning curve if you aren't that used to racing games. And that is the fact that at tracks other than Daytona and Talladega, you have to make an effort to wrestle the car around the track. This isn't like Need for Speed where you can go full throttle, you can just trip if the corner is too sharp. No! This game demands your attention and skill in a way that not many games can. For example, if you drive the car a little too hard, the car will skid in and out of turns, creating skid marks and clouds of smoke while ripping your tires apart. Too soft, and there's no way you can win a single race. And it goes beyond simply going too hard or too soft. Precision has to be used to make sure that you can run good laps and have a shot at the win. If you start accelerating too early in a turn, you'll slam the wall hard on exit and risk catching on fire and ending your day. Accelerate too late, and the competition will eat you up down the backstretch. If you start your arc too late, you will also suffer. This time by sliding out of the groove and either hitting the wall or slowing down considerably to avoid contact. Arc it down too early and you'll run down onto the apron, causing you to shoot up out of the corner and right into the wall on exit. If you think that you can master this game just by making left turns, you're going to be pissed once you start playing. Especially if you want to run with the big boys on Legend difficulty. The way 2004 molds you into a driver over time is part of what allows me to do what I do at pole position. A lot of what I have learned is the product of hours and days of this game. When Sunday comes around and you're in the big race, then you really get put to the test. Not only do you already have to be able to run laps around the track at their pace and without damaging your car, now you have to avoid bumping into any of the 42 other drivers out on the track. Those moments of, oh shit, from trying to make fast laps and finish with a clean car without having made any rivals, are some of my favorite memories from this rather dated title. It was the perfect challenge to bring yourself up to the abilities of the superheroes you watched on TV each weekend. It made you into what you've always wanted to be as a NASCAR fan, a real NASCAR driver. One that could finish the race first and still have his competition respectful of him after the race was over. From the high banks of Bristol to the sandy shores of the old Daytona Beach, this game acted as an incredible simulator for console gamers at the time. There was only one thing that kept this from being the perfect simulation of stock car racing, and that was the field itself. While speeding and able to not only give each other enough room to race, but give you enough room to race as well, it suffered from something I still see a bit of from the more recent NASCAR titles. The AI is grouped together at every single track as if it were Daytona. This is incredibly apparent in the demo that plays after sitting long enough at the menu screen. Cars travel around each track in a formation similar to that of a pace lap. For laps, they will run in a double-wide formation throughout the entire field. I mean, yeah, occasionally there'll be one or two cars that fall back, or one or two that break away, but for the most part, they run the world's fastest pace laps. Now, while annoying, the cars can still be maneuvered around. And as I said before, they try to give you enough room to do your job, but they still have a tendency to make your already slow and meticulous job of working through the field take just a bit longer. And if you end up getting impatient and start knocking guys out of the way, 2004 added a brand new feature called Grudges and Alliances that would put you in your place. If you make contact with another driver, he will become your rival. Depending on how angry you make them, rivals are known for aggressively blocking the player, giving him less room to make it through the turn, and straight knocking the ever-living shit out of him. So needless to say, rivals are not something you want to have an abundance of. On the other hand, you can also create allies by driving cleanly. Allies are more likely to let you pass, and generally treat you a lot better when they get near you on the racetrack. Having more allies will make your race a lot less stressful. Now, not only can you create allies by passing drivers without hitting them, you can also recruit allies using the brand new Share Draft feature. Share Draft works just like normal draft, but holds up a lot better and tends to be reliable at longer distances. While it is better for keeping two cars close enough to each other to draft successfully, it is not as strong as normal draft. In Share Draft, you sacrifice just a bit of speed in order to secure yourself with a drafting buddy. It also creates an air dam behind the lead car that keeps the car behind it from smacking into its bumper. However, drafting normally is more successful in moving through a crowded pack of drivers. It offers more speed and eliminates the air dam, giving you more freedom to switch lanes without losing much momentum. So to close out this segment, Share Draft to make allies and secure a good drafting partner, and draft normally on your way to the front of the pack. Now on to one of the parts of this game that isn't so great, the music. Now since I grew up listening to these songs for hours and hours and hours, it wasn't until recently that I realized how bad the music is. Now it's not actually bad music, but it's incredibly unfitting. When you sit down to a NASCAR game, Don't you expect to hear some good old country music? Don't you expect songs like Sweet Home Alabama, like they used in NASCAR Thunder 2002? Well, instead, you are treated to this.
I hate everything about you. Why do I love you?
Now, a lot of these songs are actually well made and aren't that bad to just passively hear, but it is incredibly out of place in a NASCAR game. Most of it is just post-grunge, depressing, angry metal. But thankfully, not only can you turn the music off to eliminate the angst from your body, but music isn't really that important in a racing game. When you race, you don't hear anything but the engine and your team in your ear, so the awkwardness of the music doesn't affect the gameplay at all. Well, now that we have cleansed ourselves of evil, let's discuss how the pure fact that 2004 was based off of the 2003 season makes it one of the best racing games ever made. Back then, everything seemed right in the world of NASCAR. The times between Earnhardt's death and the invention of the chase system stand out in my mind as the purest years of NASCAR's life. It was a time when the cars were fast, but had recently been made impossibly safe to match the speeds. The cars looked cool and more modern. Not modern enough to start looking tacky and flimsy, no, but also not old enough to look boxy and terrible to drive. They were nice, sturdy cars with bright and original paint schemes that made the pit road look like a goddamn rainbow. Every car had a recognizable number that carried a bit more meaning with it than they do nowadays. And every car had a driver that seemed destined to drive it. Jeff Gordon would pilot the number 24 DuPont Chevrolet. Dale Jr. tore it up in his number 8 Budweiser Chevrolet. And Jimmy Johnson drove the number 48 Lowe Chevrolet without having 6 championships shoved halfway up his ass.
Boom! Confetti!
It was a time when you could tap a guy and he wouldn't fly into the grandstands. A time when sliding through the grass wouldn't effectively end your day. And a time before that god-awful looking car of tomorrow.
Red Bull gives you wings.
Basically, everything was how it should be, and all of that charm made its way directly into the game. Another thing that was welcomed into the game was a damage system that blew the competition out of the water. In previous years, EA had added better damage into its games by including detaching parts and wrinkled fenders. When it came time to create 2004, they put their magic to work to create what I think to be the best looking damage of the time. Just before Burnout 3 made us shit bricks and turned ourselves into the insane asylum. While wrinkling and part detachment was still present, it was given the most detail of any game before it. The car showed much more in the way of smaller dings and scrapes. The scratches and tire marks were made to be more lifelike than ever before. The whole package just looked damn fine. Fire erupted from the car rather than just appearing. Smoke billowed more realistically, and each make of car had its own specific forms of damage that it could receive. Overall, as the first PS2 game my family bought after years on the PS1, I quickly learned just how good of a job they had done with the damage. Wrecks also looked really good, but in a different way. They weren't that realistic once the cars left the ground. Couldn't even get them airborne just from spinning and blowing over. You'd need a really lucky hit to send you on your lid. And once you got knocked upside down, you either stayed there until you got hit, or until the car came to almost a full stop. It wouldn't roll around, it would just kind of slide. If you were lucky enough to make it flip end over end in the air, it still looked unrealistic. Instead of just floating in the air and turning over like a normal car, the car would just barrel roll through the air. It would spin faster, and faster, and faster, so fast that the driver in any reasonable world would be dead. Then you hit the ground, and it slowly returns to its upright position. But while it looked fake, it still looked really good. The flipping of the car was intense and dazzling. The slow ride on your roof was hilarious at times, and the blunt impacts provided by the wrecks, accompanied by the shaking of the camera and the sound of the car crushing up against something else, made each wreck heart-stopping and fun. In fact, there was only one thing more rewarding in this game than the wrecks. The one thing that separates it from every NASCAR game I've played before and since. The sheer amount of effort that was put into this game. The kind of effort that a NASCAR game deserves. Everywhere you look in this game, there's an impossible amount of detail that makes this game feel so right. The number of unique race modes, the additional challenges, the collection of unlockable Thunder plates that give you everything from new paint schemes to new tracks, the recordings of the MRN announcers and the whole pre-race sequence, the victory lane with full celebration, hiring crew members, building your garage, alternate intros, trophy rooms, and a fully realistic cockpit with the fucking Tasmanian devil. The people who created this game, they actually cared. It warms my heart how much they did to include every little detail they could think of to make the experience more authentic and more interesting. If we had that kind of dedication these days, Call of Duty would be tolerable, NASCAR games wouldn't suffer the same problems year after year after year, and Sonic wouldn't be dying a slow and mediocre death. That's it. That is the single defining aspect of this game that had never existed before and hasn't been seen since. They never skimped. They never settled. EA Sports created a game that can be held up to today's NASCAR games 10 years later and still look like a very good game. So, thank you, EA Sports. Though you ran out of fuel towards the end, just remember that back in the year 2003, you were leading the race. And that's all we can ask for. Thanks for watching.